And we're live. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cruise Chat for Canadians. It is October 2nd, and if you haven't been following along on social media, it is Client Appreciation Month. So, first and foremost, thank you to all of you for taking some time out on your Wednesday evening to join us. This week, we have some great topics for you, so we're looking forward to that. As always, at the end, we wrap it up with a Q&A on any questions you have, whether they're about these two topics or anything else that is burning that you want to talk to us about. We're here to answer those questions for you. And then, as always, we have a lovely prize pack to offer at the end for all of our attending clients. So let's get started with the agenda. First and foremost, we want to make sure that you mention who you are and where you're from. That way you get into our draw. So I'm your host for this evening. My name is Matt Houpy, otherwise affectionately known as the Captain of Fun. Joining me this evening for our presenters, we have Carrie and Luke on with us this evening. We also have Karen joining us from Mexico. So welcome and happy to have everybody on board this evening. So who are we? Well, we are cruise specialists, and we help you with all of your vacation needs. Now, it's not just cruising, although that is our forte, but we also can help you out door to door. So that means we can help you with transfers, flights, hotels, pre and post cruise excursions or tours. If you want to add to a cruise with a land tour, we can help you with all of that. So it's all on our website, but all of us are specialized in this, and we want to be able to offer it to you so that we can bundle that vacation and make it special just for you. What we're talking about tonight, if you didn't see on the slide at the beginning there, we're going to be talking about Canada and New England. That'll be with Carrie. And then we'll move over to Luke, who will be talking about packing, one of those essential parts of travel. And then, as like I mentioned, we will do our Q&A at the end, and we'll have a VFC swag that we'll offer at the end. So make sure that you're throwing in those comments as I see them starting to pour in. Fantastic. You know the drill by now. Say who you are and where you're watching from so that we can acknowledge you and get you into that draw. So first, we're going to be talking about Canada and New England with Carrie. And I had the fortune of actually doing this exact trip last summer because it was a bucket list for me to go to Fenway Park in Boston. And so what better way to do that than a Canada, New England style trip where we can not only get to see the wonderful Maritimes of the United States, but also to visit a lot of our own country and visit those maritime provinces as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing everything that Carrie has to talk about with Canada, New England. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie. Carrie, take it away.
Thank you. So again, my name's Carrie Boschman. I'm one of the cruise specialists with Vacations for Canadians. And we're going to talk about Canada, New England cruises. So as Matt mentioned, there's tons of exciting things to see. And this area of the globe is not an easy area to do by land because everything is sparse. So it's a great destination to do a cruise. And then you can always go back to a particular place if you enjoy it or want to see more on that area. So it is becoming quite a very popular destination. There's 10 to 14 night cruises, and those are usually the premium cruise lines that offer those with more days at sea. So if you want to take your time and take it easy, nice and slow, those cruises usually go down to the St. Lawrence River. So you will get a chance to visit Quebec City and Montreal. And then we also have, for people that don't have a lot of time and they only have that 7 or 8 day window, a lot of the mainstream cruise lines will offer, they'll visit 5 to 7 ports in 7 days and jam pack. So you'll get to see Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI, and Newfoundland. So both options are great, especially for us Canadians. Coming from, most of our clients are from the Toronto area or within a few hour distance. So this it's an hour and a half flight from Toronto or Montreal, or you can even drive it very easily. And even the West Coast, excellent option again, as there's a lot of direct flights to New York City. So that's a great benefit instead of doing those stopovers. So we'll go to the next slide. I'm not going to talk about a lot of the destinations so much as the full cruise, more tips about cruising this area. So some areas I did mention, Newport, Rhode Island is one area that you will stop. It's easy to explore on your own. So if you don't want to do an excursion here, it would be fine. There's a lot of landmark mansions. You can do the 3.5 mile cliff walk. And there's, for those historical buffs, a lot of historical sites, including the Newport Colony House, which that's the 4th oldest state house still standing in the US. And then there's also Fort Adams, which is the largest coastal fort. I can't talk. So, and then we'll hit Bar Harbor, Maine. So again, this is another area that you can do on your own if you don't want to do like a full city tour. It's full of shops. It's again a small town, galleries. So you can browse and do a scenic nature cruise as well if you want to see local wildlife. If you want to go see this area for the Acadia National Park, so make sure, and this is where booking with us, like a cruise specialist, can help. So you would want to make sure you get the ports for destinations that you want to see. So for Acadia National Park, you would want to make sure you port at Bar Harbor and not Portland, Maine, because it would be, or Rockport. So you don't want to port there because it would be too far from the national park. As Matt mentioned, Fenway Park, we'll go to Boston. So this could be a port or the embarkation. So if it is embarkation, you can do a day or two in Boston, pre or post cruise. So that has the 2.5 mile Freedom Trail. So that connects 16 sites from the American Revolution. And Boston's just a beautiful city to walk around again or do a city tour. And then we'll hit some, so we'll move to the next slide. We'll hit some Canadian sites, provinces. So we have Halifax. So in Halifax, great for, there's a hop on, hop off double-decker bus. I always find those beneficial because it's one piece of transportation that you can book. You can sit on the bus and do the full tour because they explain what everything is. And you can get off if you want to explore something a little bit more or skip some areas if you're not that interested in those things. So I always find those useful wherever you go around the world. So the Halifax one, it's a 90-minute route. So that's good. If you port in Sydney, you can go to Peggy's Cove, which is a popular destination. So this is another destination, if you port in Halifax, it's not really accessible. So if that's important to you, you want to go see Peggy's Cove, you'll want to make sure Sydney, Nova Scotia is one of the ports on your itinerary. And then there's St. John. So the big thing there to see is the Bay of Fundy. Again, if that's important to you, make sure that is on one of your ports, your cruise itinerary. And again, not to be confused with St. John's, Newfoundland. 2 different locations, both great to see, but not the same things. We have PEI. So again, small enough to explore on foot. If you're a fan of Anne of Green Gables, you might want to visit the Heritage Place. So that's located 40 minutes from the port. So it's, for that, I would recommend booking a tour through the cruise line. And then if you're doing that 14-day excursion, you'll hit Quebec City and Montreal. So Quebec City is amazing. I would recommend, when I was there, we did a walking tour. So it's great. There's so much history that you wouldn't know about each about certain buildings. There's an old jail that you can tour, a museum right now. So it's good to do a little tour, I would recommend, in Quebec City, and then after do some independent exploration. We'll move to the next slide. So with all these locations, my favorite thing is the food. So I'll tell you what each place is most famous for. So if you do go to that port, I would recommend hitting a restaurant or a quick serve and ordering some of these things. So Boston, St. John, New Brunswick, great creamy clam chowder. So that's a must. Bar Harbor and other ports in Maine. So they would have the lobster roll, and you would follow it by a blueberry pie, which they're famous for as well. So in Halifax, they have dulse, which is an edible red seaweed. You can see it in the bottom right. And they have Digby scallops. So it's very great for seafood lovers, this itinerary. Charlottetown, we got blue mussels and French fries. And then Quebec, the most famous poutine and maple candy, of course. So we'll go to the next slide. So when traveling to Canada and New England, so when's a good time to travel? So cruises do, the itineraries are from May to October. I will say May and June, it's a little sparse. Only few cruises do cruise in this area, but it does get busier between August, September, October. So you do have that 6-month window, but the most popular time is later in those summer months. So in May, mid-June, so the weather could be a little bit cool, and it's always unpredictable. So we have spring, so everything's in full bloom. So it's always nice if you're doing some of those nature walks. There's not too many ships at the port. As I mentioned, a lot are not sailing in that area. So the tourist sites won't be overwhelming, but it may be cool. So you'll miss out if you want to do a beach day or water-based activity. It might be a little cool to do those types of things. And I would recommend looking for a cruise ship with a solarium and an indoor pool if you're wanting to swim or sit by a pool on those sea days. And then we would move to June and July. So the weather's warmer. It's starting to get a little bit busy. You can start those classic coastal activities such as whale watching, sea kayaking. Again, the scenic walks, you can do those. They have lobster and clam bakes at that time of year. And if you are traveling to Quebec City, they have the summer festival. So that is a huge festival and it's a celebration. They have music, they have bands, and there's a lot going around in the old city of Quebec. In August, so that's popular. You can go to the beach in Rhode Island, Maine, and PEI. There's great beaches. The temperatures are in the 80s. So it's great weather if you want to do more of those water activities and don't have to sit and be cold if you're always cold all the time. But it does, I will warn you, when you're packing, it does cool down at night. So just beware. And again, August is very busy. So those tourist sites will be a little bit busy or a lot busier than they would be earlier in that season. And then September to mid-October. So that's most popular, and that's because of the fall voyage season. So temperatures can dip. So again, we're starting to get that colder weather. 5 to 10 degrees is about average. So that top deck, and this is where, again, I'd recommend that solarium. The top deck will be a little bit cool, so you won't be able to enjoy the pool on some days. But again, it is unpredictable. You are on the coast, so plan to pack and wear layers, rain poncho, sun hat, insect repellent is a must. So this region is known, I know for, in my area in Ontario, we have the same bugs. So you got black flies in May, deer flies in June. and mosquitoes the rest of the summer. So pack the bug repellent for sure. And then last but not least, we'll go to the next slide. Another thing to think of when sailing, there are some ports, I would say a little bit more than normal about tendering. So just be careful when you're booking an itinerary. Again, chat with us if you do have mobility issues. So for those that don't know what tendering is, it's basically taking the cruise ships, or sometimes they don't have areas, docks or piers to port. So they will anchor in the water. And then what you'll do is go to the second or third deck, and then you'll hop on a tender boat. So when you're hopping on, it could be a little bit rocky. So again, it's very difficult if you do have mobility issues. So when picking itineraries, we can let you know if there is tendering at different ports, just so you're aware. And you get the sites you want to see. So tendering, some of the disadvantages of that is it can take a little bit longer to get to the port as well, or on shore. So when you're tendering, it's always a good idea to book a tour, because those always get priority. And main attraction in Canada and New England is the whale watching. So anytime that the cruises are sailing, there's whales there. They do migrate to the north in the summer months, so when it's warmer. So those warmer days, like June, July, August, September, they will be a lot more, but you will see some in May and October as well. And that's all I have. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Luke.
Luke, you're muted there. I'll jump in just to segue over from Carrie over to you, Luke, while you're getting yourself unmuted there. So it does take me back. I feel like Carrie hacked into my phone somehow and took some photos from my phone of all the food that I ate while I was on that trip, because I felt myself starting to get meat sweats all over again, just thinking about the smoked meat sandwiches that I had when I was in Quebec, and all the poutine that I enjoyed while I was there. But yeah, definitely the seafood is incredible when you're sailing through, especially through Maine, where it is renowned for. Not only did we try several different variations of a lobster roll, but we actually had a whole full class on how to actually break apart the lobster and find the entire meat from head to tail. And not only that, but we got like a training card that we were able to take home from with us, as well as all the ridiculous bibs that everybody wore when we were eating our lobster. So a lot of great photos, very messy meal that we enjoyed, but certainly enjoyable. And then of course, Quebec City, we were also fortunate that part of our trip took us through Quebec City. Not only being able to see the Chateau Frontenac and be able to wander through there and see just how stunning that hotel is, but also just to wander around the old streets and be able to see some of the buskers that perform on those streets. It really takes you to sort of that kind of traditional French architecture, and the way that the roadways are all set up. And then, of course, just the performers that are out there, the music, the live music that is played on the streets. It just really puts you into that European setting. And it's just, it's amazing that we have this in our backyard and that we have the opportunity to see it, and especially on a cruise. And I mean, we have all kinds of group rates with Royal Caribbean, with Celebrity, with Norwegian Cruise Line. All of these cruise lines offer these types of itineraries, and we have discounted rates on all of them. So if that's an itinerary that you're interested in, make sure that you contact your cruise specialist with Vacations for Canadians, because we can offer you some fantastic rates. And now is that ideal time. This time of year, as the fall is now here, and we get those cooler temperatures, and you enjoy some hot chocolate as you're wandering around the streets of Quebec and taking in those street performers, I guarantee you're going to enjoy that trip. Now I see Luke is ready to go, so I'm going to hand over to him, and we're going to talk all about what you need to pack and how soon you should do it.
Yeah, and thanks, Matt. Thanks, Carrie. I've had the privilege of traveling across some of the states and some of the cities that you've actually mentioned over the years. But I think cruising gives you a very different perspective of some of those cities as well. Getting off the ship and being more involved in the local area versus, you driving into a city and not knowing exactly where to start. But so let's dive into packing. So tonight, what we'll talk about is the basics of packing. We'll talk about luggage, the struggles of packing, because those can be a huge challenge to overcome, at least for some of us anyways. We'll talk about weather, because weather has a lot to do with what you need to pack. Packing 101, things that you should bring with you, things that you should not forget, things that you should not pack or bring with you. And then, as usual, I'll have a couple of cruise tips for you. So let's get diving in here. All right, packing. Well, packing is an essential part of going on a cruise. Some of the things that you need to consider as when you're packing is, what kind of luggage, how much clothes you're going to bring, and so on. And then finding little tricks on how to pack a suitcase a little bit better so you can fit more clothes and make sure that you bring all your essentials. And again, as I said earlier, we'll talk about some cruise tip at the end. Basics. Well, first, you need luggage. Some people will travel with duffel bags, carry-ons, larger luggages. Obviously, luggages, well, you have to figure out what clothes and all your personal belongings you'll be bringing with you. Weather has a huge factor in terms of what you need to bring. If you're heading out to the Caribbean, your suitcase will be filled more with warmer clothes versus if you're heading to Alaska, you'll bring with you some warmer clothes. And of course, as Carrie said earlier, you dress in layers so that you can take advantage of the different weather patterns and the temperature changes that fluctuate throughout a day. And of course, we'll touch point on some of the paperwork and passports and so on to bring with you. Luggage. As you can see here on this diagram, obviously backpacks are really good for if you're flying, to throw in some essentials in there: iPad, laptop, headphones, things you may need on the first day of embarkation, medication, that kind of stuff. Beach bag, in case you want to go to the beach and bring some towels and sunscreen and that kind of stuff. I usually bring a small beach bag for myself. It's collapsible. You throw it in the top of your suitcase, and then when you head to the beach, you have a bag to carry that stuff in. Luggage. Well, it all depends on what kind of traveler you are. Some people will fly the world and travel the world in a carry-on. Some prefer a larger suitcase, and some prefer the large one so that they can pack more stuff, bring more stuff, especially if you're on a cruise that's 10 to 15 days. You want to make sure you have enough clothes. But again, most cruise lines offer laundry facilities, but depending on what style of person you are, depends on the size of luggage you should bring with you. Packing struggles. One of which is making sure you bring everything you feel you'll need for the cruise, whether it's sunscreen, if you're heading to the beach, you have your flip-flops or sandals, sun hat, making sure you have all the clothes that you need. And the struggle here is making sure that you can squeeze all of that stuff into one suitcase. And the other thing to consider as well is weight, because even though most cruise lines don't have a luggage weight limit, they do try to align with what the air carriers are allowing. And in most cases, a suitcase with the air carrier is approximately 50 pounds. And anything above that, then you're paying a premium. So struggles of packing, making sure you have everything, trying to squeeze it into one suitcase, so you're only charged one suitcase charge when you fly to your port. Other than that, if you have the benefit of driving to port, then 1 or 2 suitcases doesn't really matter. All right, weather. Well, one of the big considerations when you're packing for your cruise is, where am I heading? If you're heading to the Caribbean, chances are you can squeeze a lot more clothes into that same suitcase compared to if you're heading to Alaska or Iceland or Norway. You have to bring some extra clothes with you, warmer clothes, sweaters, in some cases, probably you have to bring a toque. I guess it's a Canadian word, toque. So depending on where you are, depends on whether or not what kind of clothes you have to bring with you. Right. Packing 101. Again, when we're looking at weather, making sure you bring the proper clothes. Packing as well is, some people prefer to use packing cubes because packing cubes, some of them are almost like have a double zipper. You can put all your shirts in there and you zip it up, and then you zip it again, and it compresses your clothes into a smaller package. The other thing too is there's the fold your t-shirts and pants and all your belongings, and you can roll them up and you can tuck them in the little corners and find different things, different ways of packing to take advantage of the limited space that you have. You can actually roll up your socks and shove them into your running shoes and that kind of stuff to try to accommodate or to try to squeeze as much stuff into a suitcase as you can. And as I mentioned earlier, I always bring a beach bag, which once the suitcase is packed, I insert it on the top, close off my suitcase, and we're ready to roll. And also making sure that you pack and you have everything you need. The other thing too is, Matt alluded to it a little earlier, maybe before our live chat, is he's going on a cruise starting next week, and he's got his luggage opened up on a bed, and every time he remembers that he needs to bring something with him, he just puts it over onto his suitcase, and at some point the day before or whenever, he'll be able to make sure that all of that stuff he's been throwing on his suitcase will actually fit in there. So packing and finding little tricks on how to take advantage of every little space in your suitcase, rolling clothes, using packing cubes, and so on. You'll be able to bring as much as you can. Must have. Top left screen there, you'll see a plane with passports. Well, one of the key things when you're going on a cruise or you're actually flying somewhere is making sure you have the right documentation with you. Your flight information, travel insurance documentation. I like to print mine. I have a usable folder that I use that I put my insurance papers in there. Any other documents from the cruise lines, the airlines, hotel reservation, that kind of stuff, into a little sleeve. It's easy to throw in your backpack, so you have it with you as you're heading through your travels up to the point that you board the ship. Must-haves, well, you need your clothes, you need sunscreen, you need sunglasses, a hat, your shoes, to accommodate so that you have obviously clothes to wear during your cruise, but also if you have formal nights, you may want to bring some formal attire and so on. Passports are extremely important because as Canadians, even traveling into the US to board a cruise ship anywhere in the US, passports are mandatory. The other thing to keep in mind as well is that check the expiry date on your passports, because most countries won't allow you to fly to their country if your passport expires within 6 months of your return back to Canada, or maybe depending on the country, some of them is entering their country, but in many countries it's the 6 months based on the date that you will be leaving that country. Something else that you may need is, a cell phone for contacting family. People like to travel with iPads and headphones and other electronic goods as they travel the world. And we live in a world of electronics and gadgets, and most people bring them with you. Own something that's actually not here. Making sure you have a camera. Well, most cell phones today have really good cameras on them, so that's what I use. That's what I use is my iPhone to take pictures. All right. Don't forget. Well, things that some people may have CPAP machines. Make sure that you pack your CPAP machine. Most of my clients, anyways, I recommend that they bring them in your backpack. Or bring them, don't shove them in your suitcase, carry them with you. One is to make sure that they're not damaged when they start throwing luggage around or pile luggage on top of each other on carts and through the airline. But it's, obviously medical equipment. Don't forget to pack enough of your medicine. If you're going on a 7-day cruise, you may want to pack an extra few days just in case something was to happen after the 7 days, get flight delays or whatever it may be. Just make sure that you add some extra days in terms of making sure you bring your medication. The other thing too is make sure your medication is in the original bottles. Some countries or some airports may not allow you to board a plane if you have medication all in one little container and they're not marked properly. Medical insurance, travel insurance, make sure that you're well insured. Again, some countries may require you to prove that you have medical insurance. I know Mexico does. That you can't enter Mexico unless you can prove that you have medical insurance. And this last one, it's basically your chargers. Things to charge your equipment. I know with a CPAP machine, if you aboard a ship, you're not supposed to bring your own extension cord. You can ask your room steward to provide you a cord, and they usually have an abundance of them. The other thing too is be very careful. I guess Royal Caribbean has implemented a new policy around power bars. They allowed many cruise lines allow a non-surge power bar. You can bring one on a cruise ship, but now Royal Caribbean's cracking down on that. I think some of the technologies on some of the newer ships, they're a lot more high tech than they've ever been, and having an abundance, or if you have a power bar where you're plugging multiple items in one plug, it could actually cause tripping of breakers somewhere on the ship. And it's caused some major problems. And now Royal Caribbean will allow you to bring on a USB-C power bank, so long as they don't contain an extension plug where you can actually plug additional items as if it was an additional plug in your room. So it's essentially a power bar. All right. The do not pack. Each cruise line has their own list of restrictions. Obviously, I've put some pictures here in terms of, some of the, the most common ones, which are, weapons, guns, knives, and so on. And you do go through a metal detector when you arrive at port and you're going to check into to your cruise. They have metal detectors to make sure that you didn't forget a pocket knife or and so on in your pocket. But a lot of times they do have, well, in all cases, they all have a list of restrictions, particularly around weapon. The next one here, we're Canadians, and we're allowed to have marijuana and CBD oils and and different e-pens and all kinds of stuff. But in theory, many countries won't allow you to enter their country, specifically, again, the US, even if you're driving across, they forbid, and don't get caught at the border with it, is things like CBD oil. Even if it's a cream that contains CBD oil, you know, for joints and that kind of stuff, refrain from bringing it with you. And the cruise lines as well have restrictions on that kind of stuff. So again, look up what the restrictions are in terms of what you're allowed to bring on board. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of us, and we can help you through that process and help you identify those things that, you know, if you have any questions about, can I bring this on board, we'll help you. I know there are things that you're allowed to bring on board. If you like, some cruise lines will allow you to bring a bottle of wine per person, water, pop, you know, distilled water for your CPAP machine and so on. But they do have a do not pack or do not bring with you list of items. Cruise tip. Packing is a challenge, and I think to touch on Matt's point, or the comment I made about Matt as an example, is set out your suitcase, and you know, maybe it is do that first stab and put stuff on top of your suitcase, try to fit it in there, and if it doesn't quite fit, or you know, you may have forgot something, plan ahead a little bit, but also, you know, you may want to look at it, and I know I'm guilty of this. I sometimes overpack, thinking I need a shirt for every day, and I need a pair of shorts for every day, and I need, you know, my wife likes to have, you know, 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, because, you know, she has the beach shoes and pool deck shoes, and, you know, that kind of stuff. It's really stepping back and saying, and making sure that you only bring really what you need. And a lot of times we're able to wear that same pair of shorts twice on a cruise, because I'm sure there's no people walking around the ship going, oh, wait, he's wearing the same shorts he wore last Tuesday. Well, I don't think that actually happens. The other thing too is, and that's why I put a picture of somebody looking on the bed. One of the things that most cabins will usually have a space under the bed. So what you can do is actually enter your cabin on boarding day, empty your suitcase, put your clothes in the closet. You know, they have drawers and so on. And then you can actually literally slide that suitcase under your bed. And you can also use it for, you know, the extra stuff that you may have. Like if you fly to Miami in the middle of December and you have a winter jacket, well, you need to put it somewhere. You know, put it in your suitcase. Once it's empty, slide it under the bed, and you don't have to worry or look at your winter clothes while you're on a Caribbean cruise. And what do I have here? So yes, packing is an important and an essential part of cruising. And with proper planning and create yourself a checklist, you can be on your way to sitting on the beach somewhere with a margarita and enjoy your cruise, because you've actually done the due diligence of not forgetting anything. Oh, and the other thing too is, if you forgot something, like my wife always says, if you forget something, you can always buy something somewhere else, because there's usually stores or things that you can pick up something that you may have forgot. So there you go. Back to you, Matt.
All right, thanks so much, Luke. I always enjoy these presentations because I'm always making notes of what I can talk about to touch on the topics that we discuss. And I mean, the first thing that I took away from your presentation, Luke, was the teddy bear with the like ice pack on his forehead. And you talked about medical insurance. I thought you were going to talk about stuffed animals and how they're a necessity to pack for travel, because having children, I certainly know that that's a necessity for me, is that if you don't pack that stuffed animal, then you're going to be buying a very expensive one while you're on your trip. So bring that one from home.
Yes, for sure.
To touch on the CPAP, in addition to the request for the extension cords, making sure that you let us know that you're bringing a CPAP machine. We can make that request on your behalf. Like Luke mentioned, that they have the extension cords on board, but depending on the cruise line and the age of the ship, if those outlets are located on the other side of the bed, then you're going to need that extension cord so that you can apply power to your CPAP machine. So it's best if we can put those requests in advance. Then it's already set up in your stateroom. You're not trying to chase down your stateroom attendant when you're checking in, because there's 900 other things that you need to do on the day that you board the ship. So the last thing you want to be doing is chasing your stateroom attendant to try and get yourself an extension cord. So just let your cruise specialist know. We can request those on your behalf, and we can also request the distilled water that is required for the CPAP machines so that you have that available in your stateroom. One helpful tip that I always have is to create your own packing list. I have one on my phone. It's a living document. I add to it as I think of things that, oh, I wish I would have had that on the trip. Add it to the list. I've got it for the next trip so that it's ready to go. And then I can just go across that list. And if it's something that I need for this trip, I add it. And if it's something that, well, I need that for other trips because I travel with my children a lot. And so I need those ones for those trips. But for, say, the next one that I'm on with Virgin Voyages, adults only, I can just skip half that list because I can get rid of all the stuff for the kids and just focus on what mom and dad need for our travels. But certainly having a list, and then you can just avoid some of those, oops, I forgot something, because you can just go through your list, check it off as you pack it, and then start over again on the next one. All right, Linda, I hear you giggling in the background, so I know your mic is on.
I'm giggling because I am a chronic overpacker, and so like I love all these tips, but I know that, you know, the next time I go away, I'll be like ramming, you know, 2 months worth of clothes into 1 week's worth of luggage. And I would say my only tip, if I was going to share one, and you know, hopefully no one else has this problem but me, but if you're traveling off season, I always try and pull my clothes out a little bit early and try them on, because there's nothing worse than like grabbing stuff, you know, a couple of days before when you're going to pack and you try it on, it just doesn't fit quite the same way. And then you're in a panic off season trying to buy clothes to go away. So I always try and pull those clothes a little bit early and try them on. And then I pack all of them just in case.
Yeah. All very good tips.
Yeah. On my British Isles cruise, there was a lady that was sitting at our table at the dining during the dining room, in the main dining room, sorry, and she told us that she packed 5 suitcases for herself, and her husband was only allowed to bring 1. So talk about chronic overpacker. 5 suitcases, and her husband made a comment that there was 2 of them she hadn't even touched yet. So there you go.
Yeah, and I will say that, like, people always say that it's the women that are the ones that pack more, but I can attest, as somebody who packs way too much. I always have my day outfit, my night outfit, and then if I'm going to be at the pool, well, that's a third outfit for the day, and it gets ridiculous when you have like 5 or 6 pairs of footwear, and it's like, at home I can get by with 1 pair of footwear for almost any occasion, but for some reason when I travel, all of a sudden I need 6 pairs of footwear.
So we have got a couple of questions that have come in while we've been chatting about our packing woes. So the first one comes from Chris, and Chris says, I've seen some cruises that start in Boston and end in Quebec, or vice versa from Ontario. What is the best way to get to each location? Flying?
Yeah, so when I did, sorry, go ahead, Carrie. It's your topic. You cover it.
Go ahead. We would both probably have the same answer. It all depends on where you're coming from. So some people like flying, some people don't. It's way faster than driving. So I think it's personal preference. It's very easy to drive, but you would have to have that round trip option. So Boston and Boston. So if you're going to Quebec to Boston, it would be good to you can take the Via train to Quebec, or you can fly, or a bus, if that's an option. I would say Via or flying is probably your best option. And then fly home from Boston would be the best option from there.
Yeah, so if you're looking at flights, there is the multi-city option. So you could literally fly from Toronto to Boston as leg one, and then say from Quebec City back to Toronto as leg two. So you have the multi-city option as a flight. For us, when we did the trip, we were starting from Boston and then ending in Quebec. So the way that you laid it out, that's exactly how we did it. So what we did was we drove to Boston and then parked our vehicle there. Then we did our travels till we got to Quebec. And then we had a one-way flight to get us from Quebec back to Boston so that we could jump in our vehicle and then do the drive back, because half of that journey for us was the drive itself. So we wanted to do part of it and then be able to still experience the cruise and be able to travel by sea to be able to get along for the rest of the trip, but then still have that drive portion as well, so that we can see some of the countryside that we haven't had the opportunity to visit going through the United States.
Yeah.
Great answers, guys. All right. So next up is Marnie. Marnie says, I overpack all the time. I wonder about what type of clothing for fall, Canada, New England clothing use, fall, winter clothing or rainwear?
All of the above. No. As I mentioned, like when you're going into those fall months, it's give or take. You're on the coast, so sometimes you do get a breeze. I've been to places very similar to Florida over Christmas break. You can have days you're in the 80s, so 25 degrees, and you can have days where it's 5 degrees within the same week. So it's very unpredictable. So I always recommend packing, bring lots of layers. So thin layers, clothes. So like t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt with a jacket that you can always carry if it does get cool. I wouldn't say you would need a winter coat, but possibly like not a rain jacket, but a fall coat would be beneficial for sure. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, like Columbia makes like a fantastic 3-in-1 jacket. So I always tell people, and we had this conversation last week when we talked about Alaska as well, with packing and how to figure out Alaska, because you're going from warm summer weather, say in Vancouver, and then jumping on an Alaskan cruise and going somewhere where it's a little cooler. So you're trying to pack for two different climates. So we always talked about layering and being able to have those options. So I always love that. I have a 3-in-1 jacket because I can remove the outer shell and use that as like a windbreaker. But then I also have the fleece liner that I can use as a sweater. And then if it really gets cold, I'm putting the two together to make that warmer jacket that has the windbreaker element with the fleece liner underneath. And you have those layers, but you can add and remove as you need, so that you're always kept comfortable.
Great. Thanks, guys. All right. Next question up is from,
Marnie?
also from Marnie.
There it
Yes, I'm like, I got confused there. I'm like, I just did Marnie. Marnie had another question. A solo traveler here. Why is there not more solo balconies offered on cruise lines? Who wants the side cabin? I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement,
like
but
an
maybe you
inside.
can
I think
speak
she
to
said
that.
who wants an inside cabin, maybe.
Right.
But certainly with the cruise lines, they are becoming aware that the population of solo travelers is getting bigger and bigger. There are a lot more solo cruisers now. We have a lot more demand for solo deals. And so the cruise lines are making notice of this, because if you see on some of the newer ships now, you're going to start seeing these new categories of cabins that are popping up on a lot of the different cruise lines that have solo balconies, solo studio balconies, and they'll have solo ocean views or solo inside rooms. So they're really trying to accommodate the solo cruiser, not only in the stateroom itself, but also the pricing that goes with it, because so much of the time you're paying almost double the price just to travel alone. And because we have such an increasing number of solo travelers, the cruise line is taking notice of this, and they're really trying to do what they can to accommodate that.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else on that? Carrie, Luke, you want to add to that, or
No.
are we all good?
I just think at the end of the day, many of these cruise ships were designed for double occupancy. And as Matt stipulated or said, more and more of them are starting to recognize the solo traveler, but also reach out to us. Sometimes we are able to find a double occupancy cabin that has a solo rate on it. So, just reach out to one of us and we'll see what we can find for you.
Yeah, or to add to that, Luke, just to say that some of our group rates are so low pricing that if you were to compare what it would cost for you as a solo traveler on some of these cruise ships and compare it to what we have in our discounted rates for double occupancy, you would actually pay less as a solo passenger in a double occupancy in our group rates than you would as a solo passenger if you were to just try and book yourself directly through the cruise line. And then if you travel under a double occupancy in groups, once you have boarded the ship and the cruise has completed, you're going to get refunded your taxes and fees of the second guest. Plus, if there's anything like perks included that have beverage packages or anything like that, you're going to get the gratuities off that drink package refunded back to you. So there is some funds that'll come back to you at the end of it as well. So that just ties into that savings that you would get with the discounted group rates that we can offer.
Fantastic. All right. Last question, it looks like, for the night is coming from Tina. And Tina asks, what are the pros and cons for sailing at Christmas?
Well, let's get the con out of the way right now. It's the con is that cruising during the Christmas season or the New Year's Eve season is more expensive than other times of the year, because it's in high demand. People are on holidays and they want to do something. The pro on the flip side of that is you're actually traveling during the Christmas season, either to get away from the snow or to travel with family and actually spend some time on a cruise ship with your family during Christmas or celebrate New Year on a ship, which is it's a unique and it's a different experience. And some people like doing it on a yearly basis. They just, you know what, we pack up. We head to the Caribbean in December because we just want to get away from the snow, and we celebrate Christmas at sea.
Yeah, I would say that I traveled at Christmas pretty regularly. And one of the reasons we did it is that, especially if you have kids, is that after Christmas is done with, then it's like, well, what are we going to do for the rest of the week? Amuse me. So traveling during Christmas is really amazing because you've got lots and lots of things to do and you're escaping the snow. So for us, that was definitely a pro.
Yeah, so I actually did a cruise over Christmas and New Year's. It was with our agency, and Tina was the host of it as a hosted cruise that we did on the Celebrity Millennium. And so we traveled as a family. So we certainly experienced both the pros and the cons of doing that type of travel over the holidays. It wasn't so much the flight costs that we had to worry ourselves about, but the time of year of trying to fly out. We actually encountered a snowstorm that grounded some of the airlines completely, not just like a few flights here and there, but WestJet entire fleet was grounded because of the snowstorm. And we were very fortunate to get out, and there were plenty of people that were on that hosted cruise with Tina that actually didn't get out. And so they had to catch a later flight and join us partway through the cruise at a later port. Thankfully, because one, they had insurance, and two, because they booked their flights through the cruise line, and the cruise line worked with the airline in order to be able to get them to join us partway through. So that would be my con number one. My con number two is if you're traveling with children, maintaining the element of the Christmas miracle and the spirit of Christmas and everything like that. And, a certain someone delivering gifts, trying to make that work on a cruise, you have to pack all your gifts unwrapped. Because if the security, as you're going through security, has to open your bags and you have presents wrapped, they are unwrapping all of them, which means you have to pack wrapping paper and you have to pack whatever else to go with those gifts to wrap them. So it just becomes a freaking nightmare once you get onto the ship, because you're now having to wrap presents while your kids are away doing something on the ship. The one big pro that we enjoyed was that no one had to host Christmas. So all of us collectively didn't want to host Christmas for a very large family. So we took ourselves and all went on a ship so that no one had to host, and that we could see the ship all decorated with the festive holidays. They do special menus, they do special drinks. There's all kinds of extra events that are curated around the holiday theming. So you get to see things that you normally wouldn't see on a cruise ship, as well as special celebrations that the staff will participate in that don't happen the rest of the year. So very unique events that happen just during that time that you wouldn't get to experience on any other sailing.
And
Right.
I'm just going to add to that. I travel, I have kids. I have to travel over the Christmas season. That's when they have their breaks to prevent them from being out of school. But there's a lot of cruise lines, as Matt mentioned, that decorate. So Disney does Christmas at the beginning of December on their ships. Actually, all the ships, they're decorated for Christmas. It looks beautiful. It's just, they celebrate it for longer than just that little season or that little week. The other thing, a recommendation, if you do plan on sailing over Christmas, I would start looking now for 2025. A lot of people wait until now to start looking for 2024. A lot of our ships are already sold out. So book very early, lock those prices in, because the prices will skyrocket as you get closer. We do have a lot of groups during those holidays. So the Christmas holidays, New Year's, and March break for the kids. So get those as soon as you can, because they do sell out very quickly.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to my big con at the beginning. Christmas is more expensive than other times of the year. But Carrie stole my thunder because I was just going to say that even though it's a con, if you plan, at least a year ahead of time, you're able to book ahead, better rates. We possibly have some group rates and so on. So by booking ahead, you secure that cost and group space and so on. So even though it's a con because it is more expensive at the time of the year, there are workarounds that we can work with you in terms of finding possibility group rates, booking ahead, making sure you secure quite ahead of time to secure some better pricing than trying to do it now and scrambling to find if there are any cabins left, months before the Christmas season. Yeah.
Great. So I am gonna jump over to giveaway time, and today we've got a mouse pad because I'm pretty sure all of you are on the computer. So we're gonna give you a lovely Vacations for Canadians mouse pad, and you'll be able to use that when you're watching our future cruise chat. So I'm just gonna share my screen here and we'll do the draw. And as always, if for some reason it comes up with Vacations for Canadians or any of our agents, we will draw again.
I think Tina just got the most detailed answer we've ever had on one of these Q&As.
Hey,
yes,
we
won again.
We won again. We're awesome. All right. Well, we're going to draw again.
Respin. Can we make it 2 in a row?
Yes, it's Luke. Luke won. Let's see if we can get all of our agents before we actually get a real winner. Please no. Hey, Marty! Awesome.
We had 2 questions. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. I'm going to put my email into the chat. So if you can just email me and I'll get your information from you to send out your prize.
Oh, we had a question that popped in there while you were doing that, Linda. They were just asking about booking on board and if there's still a benefit to booking on board. So I can answer that real quick. There's still definitely benefits because before, especially when you're mentioning Celebrity, they used to offer an early booking bonus for onboard credit. Celebrity has since done away from that. So now the only ability to have that sort of onboard credit by booking in advance is if you were to do just that, book on board. If you book into a refundable deposit on Celebrity and then transfer it over to us, that becomes a reservation that we can then manipulate however we can best see fit to assist you with where you want to go. So if you book any sailing whatsoever, anyone, in a refundable deposit, you pay the minimum on there, you get the onboard credit offer from the cruise line, and then once you transfer it over to us, then we can plug and play that reservation into any of our group space, get you that discounted rate, but you still hold on to that onboard credit offer that you got with the cruise line when you booked on board. So that's the benefit to still booking on board. It's not nearly $800 in onboard credit anymore, but depending on the time of year and what promotions are going on with us, if we can sync them up, depending on when the reservation is created, again, it goes based on when you booked on board. So that is the date that the service history will show the reservation was created. So even if we shift it to a new ship and sail date, it will still hold on to that original date as far as the time of booking. So we'll do our best to try and coordinate it with different promotions we have going on. But certainly that onboard credit offer that they have with the cruise line, you can take advantage of while you're on board and then transfer it over to us, and we'll be able to help you going forward. There you see our contact information. So the phone number for the agency is there, 289-812-2355. As always, if you see any of the deals that you like on our Facebook page, you can reach out to sales@vacationsforcanadians.com, or if you already have one of our cruise specialists that's been helping you out in the past, just send them a message, take a screenshot of the ad that you're interested in and send it to them, and they'll be able to help you out. As always, all of these fantastic offers that we post on our Facebook page, we then transfer over to our website. So you can visit our website at www.vacationsforcanadians.com and see all of those great deals under our deals tab, as well as any of the other things that we talk about on this cruise chat. So for instance, with Luke's packing tips, you will actually see some of those packing references in our frequently asked questions. So if you go under frequently asked questions, you'll actually see, what do I wear on a cruise? What type of things should I be packing? So those exact type of questions that you already may have, we've already answered for you in our frequently asked questions. So be sure to check out our website for that and all the other helpful tips and hints that we have for you, as well as great promotional offers on not only the cruises that we sell, but like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we also offer discounted rates on hotels. We have pre and post cruise expeditions that you can do that we have contracted rates for, as well as shore excursions and everything in between. So be sure to check out our website for all of that. As always, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you taking time out on a Wednesday evening to join us. Like I said at the beginning, it is Client Appreciation Month, so an extra thank you to all of you. Without you, none of us would have a job. So thank you for making this what it is, and we're happy to jump on here every week and be able to share our information with you, as well as answer any burning questions that you might have. My thanks to Luke and Carrie and Linda working the magic in the back. And we will see you all again next week. Bye for now.
Thanks all. Good night.
Good night.